All right, let's jump right into it. SmackDown this week was a wild ride, with some serious drama unfolding both in and out of the ring. Yeah, it definitely left us with a lot to unpack.
We always talk about the athleticism and the spectacle, but this episode really brought the emotional intensity,
It did, yeah.
especially with Drew McIntyre. I mean, that loss at Hell in a Cell was brutal, but
Right.
what's hitting him even harder is this feeling of abandonment, like everyone's turned their back on him.
Especially after that family tragedy he's dealing with, it just adds another layer of complexity to it all.
You could really see the anger and hurt in his promo, lashing out at Roman Reigns and CM Punk like,
Yeah, it's like he's blaming them for his pain, trying to find someone to direct that rage toward.
like he's losing himself in it. And then Sami Zayn steps in, trying to talk some sense into him.
Which is interesting, right? Because they represent such different approaches to dealing with the pressures of WWE.
Totally. You've got McIntyre on one side, consumed by this rage and isolation, and Zayn on the other, emphasizing the importance of the support system, yeah. It's like he's challenging McIntyre's worldview, saying, hey, you're not alone in this.
And that whole conversation was so tense. Like you could cut the tension with a knife.
Right. Things could have easily escalated.
But then, just when you think it can't get any more intense, Jey Uso returns.
And that changes everything.
Talk about a game changer.
Jey siding with Zayn against McIntyre was a clear message. The Bloodline is back, and they're united.
Which leaves McIntyre even more isolated, right?
Yeah.
Like, where does he go from here?
That's the big question. Can he channel this anger and hurt effectively, or will it consume him?
We've seen him overcome adversity before, but this feels different, like a turning point in his character.
It'll be interesting to see how this shapes his journey moving forward. Now, while McIntyre's grappling with all that, SKY is making some serious waves in the women's division.
Oh, absolutely. She was incredible in that Intercontinental Championship tournament, dominating both Alba Fire and Natalya.
It wasn't just the win, it was the way she did it. The athleticism, the precision, the intensity.
She was on fire.
Exactly.
For those who might not be as familiar with her style, what should they be looking for?
Well, she's got this unique blend of aerial agility and hard-hitting strikes.
I noticed that, yeah. She's so quick and fluid in the ring.
She mixes grace and power and executes both with incredible precision. Plus, she's got that strong background from her time in Japan.
Ah, that explains it. It adds another layer to her in-ring presence for sure.
It does.
And with this win, she's set to face Lyra Valkyria. Talk about a clash of styles.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be an incredible match, that's for sure.
Makes you wonder, could this be the start of a new era in the women's division? With SKY leading the charge?
She definitely has all the tools to become a dominant force.
Yeah, she's got the talent, the drive, and now the momentum. This match against Lyra will be a real test.
It'll be a key indicator of her potential to reshape the division.
Speaking of potential shakeups, things aren't looking so rosy for Judgment Day. Baylor is clearly not happy about losing his title.
No, he's not. And there's a lot of tension brewing within the faction.
You can feel it, right? Like something's about to snap.
It's almost as if the loss exposed some cracks in their foundation. Remember, there's always been that underlying tension between Baylor and Priest.
Right.
And now with Mysterio stepping up to challenge Priest, it feels like things could implode.
Yeah, the whole power dynamic within Judgment Day seems to be shifting. It makes me think, could this be mirroring what's happening with McIntyre? Both dealing with betrayal and isolation, just in different ways.
That's a really interesting parallel. Both situations highlight the fragility of alliances and the impact of power struggles.
Just like we're seeing two sides of the same coin. One man struggling to cope alone, and a group struggling to stay together. And speaking of power struggles, Chad Gable's on the rise, but it's creating some interesting dynamics in the tag team division.
Yeah, his win this week was impressive, but what really caught my eye was the tension between him, Otis, and the Creed brothers.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Gable's ambition might be pushing him in a different direction.
It almost feels like he's outgrowing his current partnership. And the Creed brothers have always been a force to be reckoned with.
They have.
Could we be seeing some new alliances forming? Or maybe even rivalries?
Absolutely. Gable's rise is shaking things up. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, especially considering the chaos we saw during the Lumis mismatch.
Oh, man, don't even get me started on that. Pure mayhem.
Interference everywhere you looked, right? It felt like the whole roster was getting involved.
And in the midst of all that, the Wyatt Six emerged as the dominant force. Talk about adding another layer of intrigue.
Right. It's like, how will all these seemingly separate threads connect?
Exactly. We've got Gable's ambition potentially disrupting the tag team division, Judgment Day on the verge of implosion, and the Wyatt Six inserting themselves into the mix. It's a recipe for some explosive confrontations.
It is.
And speaking of explosive confrontations, we can't forget about the rivalry that's been simmering for weeks now. Seth Rollins versus CM Punk.
Oh, that's right.
Rollins' interview this week was something else. He really went after Punk, calling him a hypocrite and revealing just how deep this feud runs for him personally.
What's interesting is how Rollins is framing this rivalry. It's not just about winning a match. It's about exposing what he sees as Punk's true character.
Right. Like he's trying to tear down Punk's legacy.
Exactly. He's questioning Punk's integrity, making it personal. And you can tell that Punk's words and actions have really gotten under Rollins' skin.
Oh yeah, this is way more than just trash talking and posturing.
It's a battle for respect, for recognition, for the right to define their own narrative.
And with their match being set for the debut of Raw on Netflix, the stakes are incredibly high.
Millions of people will be watching. This is a career-defining moment for both of them.
A win for Rollins solidifies his status as a top-tier superstar. For Punk, it's a major comeback story, proving he's still a force to be reckoned with.
It's about proving who's the true architect of their own destiny. It's going to be epic.
Speaking of shaping one's own destiny, we saw a surprising turn of events with Kofi Kingston this week.
I know, right? Who could have predicted that?
To have his own mother step in and publicly call him out for his recent actions. That's a whole new level of drama.
It was a brilliant move by WWE. It injects this personal element that we haven't seen before with Kofi.
It really makes you think about the consequences of his actions, not just in the ring, but in his personal life as well.
Now he's not just dealing with the fallout from his rivals. He's facing disapproval from his family.
It adds a whole new dimension to his story. Makes you wonder how this will affect him moving forward.
Will he double down on his behavior? Or will this be a wake-up call? Only time will tell.
So to recap, we've got McIntyre wrestling with isolation and anger, IYOSKY potentially changing the landscape of the women's division, Rollins and Punk locked in a battle for legacy, and Kofi Kingston facing family drama on top of everything else.
Yeah, this episode really packed a punch.
It did. It's this kind of interwoven storytelling, this blending of personal journeys with high-stakes competition that makes WWE so captivating.
It's like we're getting a glimpse into the human side of these larger-than-life characters.
And that's what keeps us coming back for more. The athleticism, the spectacle, the drama, the stories.
It's all part of the WWE experience.
It's like a soap opera, but with body slams.
Exactly. Speaking of unpredictable narratives, this week's episode really highlighted the ever-shifting power dynamics within WWE.
Yeah, it feels like the landscape is constantly changing. You've got veterans like McIntyre questioning their place, rising stars like IYOSKY making their mark, and established figures like Rollins and Punk redefining what a rivalry can be.
And then you throw in these personal storylines like Kofi Kingston's situation with his mom. It makes you wonder if he'll double down on his recent actions or try to make amends. It's going to be fascinating to see how that unfolds.
It really adds a layer of depth that you don't always see in wrestling storylines. It forces you to think about these characters as more than just performers, and it makes their journeys that much more compelling.
It's a smart move by WWE. They're blurring the lines between the characters we see in the ring and the real people behind them. And that's what keeps us hooked, keeps us invested in their stories.
It's like a mix of athletic competition and Shakespearean drama, all rolled into one.
Exactly. This episode really highlighted the power of storytelling in WWE.
Absolutely. It's not just about the physical feats. It's about the narratives that drive those actions, the emotions that fuel the rivalries, and the personal stakes that make every victory or defeat feel so much more significant.
It's that combination of athleticism, storytelling, and unpredictable twists that makes WWE such a unique form of entertainment.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts or predictions for what's to come?
I think the key takeaway is to expect the unexpected. WWE is constantly evolving, and they're masters at keeping us guessing who will rise, who will fall, what new alliances will form, what old rivalries will reignite.
Those are the questions that keep us coming back week after week.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. It's a world full of possibilities, where anything can happen and where the only constant is change.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything from this week's SmackDown, and I have to say, this deep dive has been a blast. It's amazing how much there is to unpack beneath the surface of these storylines.
I agree. It's always a pleasure to delve deeper into the world of WWE and explore the complexities of the characters and the narratives that drive them.
So, to all you listeners out there, we leave you with this. Keep watching, keep analyzing, and keep those predictions coming. Who do you think will come out on top in the coming weeks? Whose story are you most invested in? Let us know. And until next time, keep on diving deep.
Could be, could be. And the Creed brothers, they've always been a force to be reckoned with. So, who knows what kind of shakeups we might see.
It's exciting, right? All this
Correct.
potential for new rivalries and alliances.
Absolutely. And then throw in the chaos we saw during that Lumis mismatch and
Oh, man. That was just wild.
interference left and right. It felt like half the roster was involved.
And somehow, through all that, the Wyatt Six managed to stand tall. I mean,
Talk about making a statement.
right. So now we've got Gable's ambition potentially shaking up the tag team division, Judgment Day teetering on the brink of implosion, and the Wyatt Six inserting themselves into the mix.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, I think it's a recipe for some epic confrontations.
You're probably right. You're probably right. Speaking of epic confrontations, we got to talk about Rollins and Punk. That rivalry is just getting more and more intense.
Rollins' interview this week was brutal. He really went after Punk. Didn't hold back at all.
He didn't. Calling him a hypocrite, questioning his integrity, revealing how personal this whole feud is for him.
Yeah, you could tell those accusations really struck a nerve with Rollins. It's like Punk's words have been eating away at him for weeks.
It's more than just a clash of egos at this point.
Absolutely. This is about legacy, about respect.
About who gets to control the narrative, define their own story.
And with their match set for the debut of Raw on Netflix, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Millions of people watching worldwide. It's a career-defining moment for both of them.
For Rollins, a win solidifies his status as one of the top guys. For Punk, it's a chance to prove he's still got it, that he's still a force to be reckoned with.
It's battle for the ages, really.
It is. It's a battle to see who the true architect of their own destiny is. And speaking of shaping one's destiny, we saw a pretty surprising turn of events with Kofi Kingston this week.
Oh, yeah. Didn't see that coming. Who would have thought his own mother would step in and call him out like that, on live television, no less?
I know, right? It adds a whole new layer of complexity to his story, this element of family drama.
It's brilliant, really. It forces us to think about the consequences of his actions, not just in the ring, but in his personal life as well.
Yeah, now he's not just dealing with the fallout from his rivals, he's facing disapproval from his own family. It makes you wonder how this will affect him moving forward.
Will this be a wake-up call? Will he try to redeem himself in their eyes?
Or will he double down on his recent behavior? It's a real turning point for his character.
It is. So, to recap, we've got McIntyre struggling with isolation and anger, IYO SKY potentially changing the landscape of the women's division, Rollins and Punk locked in a battle for legacy, and Kofi Kingston facing family drama on top of everything else.
It's almost too much to keep track of.
But that's what makes WWE so compelling, right? It's this blend of personal journeys and high-stakes competition, all woven together into this grand narrative.
It's like we're getting a glimpse into the human side of these larger-than-life characters.
Exactly. We see their struggles, their triumphs, their vulnerabilities, and that's what keeps us hooked.
It's a unique form of entertainment, that's for sure.
It is. It's like a soap opera, but with body slams.
The best kind of soap opera. But speaking of unpredictable narratives, this week's episode really highlighted the ever-shifting power dynamics within WWE.
It did. I mean, the landscape is constantly changing.
You've got veterans like McIntyre questioning their place, rising stars like IYO, SKY making their mark, and established figures like Rollins and Punk redefining what a rivalry can be.
And then you add those personal storylines like Kofi and his mom. It just adds another layer of depth and complexity.
It does. It's not just about the wins and losses anymore. It's about the personal journeys, the emotional stakes.
It forces you to think about these characters as more than just performers.
It's a smart move by WWE, blurring the lines between fiction and reality.
Absolutely. And that's what keeps us coming back for more.
Week after week, it's like a mix of athletic competition and Shakespearean drama, all rolled into one.
Exactly. It's storytelling at its finest.
It really makes you think about these characters as more than just, performers. It makes their journeys that much more compelling.
It is. It is. And it's a smart move, really, on WWE's part, blurring those lines between the characters and the people behind them.
Keeps us invested, keeps us guessing what's going to happen next.
Exactly.
It's like a mix of athletic competition and, Shakespearean drama all rolled into one.
Exactly. This episode, it really highlights the power of storytelling in WWE.
It does. It's not just about the physicality. It's about the narratives, the emotions, the personal stakes that make every win or loss feel so much more significant.
And it's that combination, the athleticism, the storytelling, those unpredictable twists and turns that makes WWE such a unique form of entertainment, I think.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts, any predictions for what's to come?
Well, I think the main takeaway here is to expect the unexpected. WWE is constantly evolving. They're always keeping us on our toes.
That's for sure.
Who's going to rise? Who's going to fall? What new alliances will we see? What old rivalries will be reignited? It's these questions that keep us coming back week after week.
They do, they do. It's a world full of possibilities where anything can happen.
And that's what makes it so exciting, right? The only constant is change.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything from this week's SmackDown. This deep dive has been, I gotta say, a lot of fun. It's amazing how much there is to unpack beneath the surface of these storylines.
I agree. It's always fascinating to delve deeper into the world of WWE, explore the complexities of these characters and narratives that drive them.
Absolutely. So, to all you listeners out there, we leave you with this. Keep watching, keep analyzing, and keep those predictions coming. Who do you think will come out on top in the coming weeks? Whose story are you most invested in? Let us know. And until next time, keep on diving deep.